Let's talk about someone who is unusual in that he comes neither from the New York scene on the East Coast nor the Los Angeles scene on the West Coast. I'm speaking of Dave Brubeck, the talented jazz pianist and composer. Dave Brubeck grew up near San Francisco, California, on a farm. He first learned piano from his mother, who was a piano teacher. His college education was interrupted by World War II. But after World War II, he attended Mills College, where he studied composition with the acclaimed French composer Darius Milhaud. Actually, in 1923, Darius Milhaud had been one of the first European composers to write a jazz-influenced classical composition. It is called La Création du Monde. It is an amazing piece of music because it was way ahead of its time in 1923. Milhaud later emigrated to the United States during World War II. And at Mills College, he encouraged student composers to incorporate the folk music of their country into their compositions. For Dave Brubeck, this meant using jazz elements in his compositions. Brubeck appreciated the teaching of Milhaud so much that he named his first child Darius. Darius Brubeck is now an active jazz musician in South Africa. In 1946, Brubeck formed an octet that would perform his arrangements of jazz standards and many of his own original works. The group performed in the San Francisco Bay Area through 1948. Many of these original works could be considered third-stream music. They have classical elements and jazz elements combined to create a new style that was coined by Gunter Schuller called third-stream music. These pieces were very avant-garde for their time. In 1949, Brubeck formed a trio. He added alto saxophonist Paul Desmond in 1951, forming the commercially successful and eventually world-renowned Dave Brubeck Quartet. Now, Paul Desmond was a significant cool-style alto saxophonist. His mellow tone and frequent understated improvisations are the epitome of the cool style. Through the help of Darius Milhaud, Dave Brubeck's groups performed college concerts on the west coast of California. They were the first jazz group to perform formal jazz concerts for college audiences. The quartet recorded a series of albums entitled Jazz Goes to College. This happened in the 1950s. Later on, in 1958, Time Out was one of their most successful albums. It showcases jazz compositions in meters other than the usual 4/4 time signature. Now, we're usually counting to 4 in most of the songs that we listen to. So this is the first time in jazz in a way that other numbers can be counted to. Certainly, if you can count to 4, you could count to 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Of course, if you do that, a lot of times people would say that's a waltz. So the jazz waltz becomes maybe more important at this time. Then you can also count to 5. Well, that's a little unusual, but in fact, Dave Brubeck did just that in a song called Take 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He actually is credited with teaching the world how to swing in 5. Actually, the piece was co-written by Paul Desmond. Well, let's listen to Dave Brubeck and Paul Desmond's Take 5, actually in a video that we're going to watch. Notice how the 5/4 time signature is introduced by drummer Joe Morello. Then Dave Brubeck enters on the piano with a pattern that highlights the 5/4 time signature as well. Now Paul Desmond plays the melody on his alto sax with that really laid-back, nice creamy sound. Now Paul Desmond's going to take a solo Listen to how he plays not very many notes, creates a little space, does the kind of things we expect out of a cool style musician. Now we're going to listen to another selection off that same album, Time Out. It's called 3 to Get Ready, and it alternates a 3/4 time signature with a 4/4 time signature. So he's going back and forth between 3 and 4. That would seem kind of confusing, but you'll see it kind of as fun. You have to really pay attention to count the measures correctly. So we're going to listen to a little bit of this now. I'll count a little bit of it with you, and then I'll let you listen to a little bit too. So here's 3 to Get Ready. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So it's not really alternating yet, but now it's going to 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now I'll let you listen. So during that drum break, you got to count to 4 twice to know when they're coming back in. Well, sorry about the bad sound quality of that. I had to do that in order to, count along with it. Well, let's move on to one more selection. This one's perhaps the most interesting of them all. It's called Blue Rondo a la Turk. Dave Brubeck gets that title from a Mozart composition called Rondo alla Turca. No blue in front of it. Rondo alla Turca. But anyway, he takes that title, and I'll let you hear him explain it in a second, but he uses a 9/8 time signature. That means we're going to count to 9 in every measure. That's a lot of numbers to count. But anyway, he's going to arrange the eighth notes into groupings of 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 3. If you add that up, it adds up to 9. And it's going to be 3 measures of that, followed by 1 measure of just 3 plus 3 plus 3. So it sounds something like this: 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So I'll let Dave himself explain this now on a video that you're going to watch.
We used a 9/8 time that I would like to demonstrate a bit because it's quite different than most jazz. You count it 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3, which totals 9. It's a Turkish rhythm that most of the people in Turkey have no more trouble with than we have with rock and roll here. It's called Blue Rondo a la Turk.
Dave Brubeck went on to have a successful career as one of the most popular jazz musicians of the second half of the 20th century. His picture was once on the cover of Time magazine. He lived well into his 90s and well into the 21st century.